Shabbat Shalom, everyone. This Shabbos is Shabbos Parshat Acharei-Kedoshim. We have a double Torah portion, and God gives us the very challenging commandment of Ki Kadosh Ani Hashem. Kedoshim Tiyu, you shall be holy, because I am holy. I mean, God is holy, therefore we should be holy. And so how do we become holy? And it's very much the theme of this whole period of time, because this month, the month of Iyar, the month of Ani Hashem Reifecha, I am God your healer, is the month in which every single day we have a unique mitzvah, and that is the mitzvah of the Omer. The Omer is to elevate ourselves every single day to become a little bit better. Today is the 22nd day of the Omer, which is 3 weeks and 1 day of the Omer. And every day we add another sphira, another divine attribute, another idea of spirituality in which we elevate ourselves. And so, but the Omer is also known for another aspect, and that is it's also a time of mourning. And the reason why it's a time of mourning is because later on, the students of Rabbi Akiva, the 24,000 students of Rabbi Akiva could not get along. And they died during a plague. The 24,000 students of Rabbi Akiva died during a plague, during the Omer. And therefore, it is customary that we don't do any weddings during the Omer. We don't have live music during the Omer until Lag BaOmer, coming up just in 2 weeks or 10 days, when we have weddings and we cut our hair. And so, the obvious question is, how could it be that the students of Rabbi Akiva didn't get along? It says, Amar Rabbi Akiva, what was Rabbi Akiva's whole theme? You have to love your fellow as yourself. And so how could it be that Rabbi Akiva's own students couldn't get along? If you're a student of your teacher, and that is your Rebbe, you have to at least follow his basic and his demand of loving your fellow as yourself. And the answer the Rebbe explains is that that Rabbi Akiva's students, they loved each other so much. But they loved each other so much, they wanted one to be like the other. And one would pray for 8 hours a day, he wanted the other to pray for 8 hours a day. One would study for 6 hours a day, he wanted the other to study 6 hours a day. Each one had their own derech, each one had their own way. But they wanted each other to be like them. And that is not what true love is. True love is to love someone unconditionally for who they are, not by trying to make them like you, but loving them for who they are. And this is the grave mistake of the students of Rabbi Akiva made. And unfortunately, for their great stature and level that they were on, it was a terrible plague. I mean, the Rabbi Akiva students were totally obliterated. His entire dynasty of working for 14 years and then another 14 years in order to build one of the greatest students and base, one of the greatest scholars in the Torah, and they all die from a plague. And therefore, we have the mourning of the Omer until Lag BaOmer, which was one of the students of Rabbi Akiva, Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai, the codifier, the author of the Zohar, the one that wrote the Zohar down, and on that day was a great celebration. But we find another very powerful idea, and that's from Rabbi Akiva, and that is the resilience of Rabbi Akiva. Could you imagine, Rabbi Akiva just started learning the Aleph base when he was 40 years old. When he was 40 years old, he passed by a rock, and he saw that the rock had penetration of a hole, and he looked up, there was a drop of water dropping down, and that's what made the hole into this rock. And because of that, he says, if the water can make a hole in the rock, then the Torah can penetrate my brain. He started to study. He became the greatest of scholars. He built the greatest of dynasties of students, one of the greatest Tana, one of the greatest the codifiers of the Talmud. And then he loses everything. What would he do? In today's day and age, he lost everything. There's one option is you can go to a therapist, but back then they didn't have the therapist that we have today. And Rabbi Akiva, what does he do? He starts off all over again. And he just has 5 students. But these 5 students become the greatest students of the Talmud, some of the greatest scholars of the Talmud. Elazar ben Shamua and Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai, Rabbi Yossi, some of the greatest of teachers that we talk about in the Talmud are from these 5 students. The 24,000 students, we don't know a single one of their names, but these 5 students that he restarts with, they rebuild Judaism through Rabbi Akiva. And so that is the more powerful lesson we learn from Rabbi Akiva, the resilience. Sometimes you go through challenges in our life, sometimes you go through difficulties in our life, and we feel like we should just give up. Rabbi Akiva restarts everything, and he builds the entire Judaism from these 5 students. They become the greatest scholars of the Talmud, and he's able to give over his scholarship and the leadership to these 5 scholars, and that becomes his legacy. And so whenever we have a challenge in life, remember the story of Rabbi Akiva, don't give up, and let's continue to spiritualize ourselves every single day, become a little holier every single day with the Omer. I hope to see you tonight, 7:30, tomorrow morning at 10:15.